Hi there, I'm Amberlynn Vital. I'm here in western Montana. We have a nice view of the Bitterroot Mountains over here and the valley below. I came here for vacation and was immediately very excited to find a lot of grazing ruminants in very tall grasses, which, since I like to eat meat and I like to put it on top of my vegetables, I got very excited about the possible sourcing of this meat. And we found a local packing company, Hamilton Packing, owned by two local owners, two local guys, and we were able to interview them. And this is really compelling for me because there's a lot of concern over whether we should even be eating meat, whether it's environmentally sustainable, whether it's the right thing to do. And what we have here in this valley is the ideal situation where you have small ranchers, small farmers, a small company that processes this meat, that is passionate about what they do, that cares about how the animals are raised, that has a nice combination of economics, environmental sustainability, and actual care and passion for their animals. Please listen to these guys. They've really got a lot of heart and soul into this, and they're able to provide a service to this community, not only for their domestic animals, but for the wild animals that they hunt, that is very individualized with a lot of attention to detail and really paying attention to whether the animals that are coming in are healthy, whether they've been properly cared for, and that the meat that comes out of that is optimized, as healthy as it can be for you and I. So stay tuned to the end because you'll hear an awesome recipe for a marinade for the ribeyes that we got this day from the Hamilton Packing Company that came out of beef raised right here in this valley, grazing up to their cow pits in native grasses. Thank you so much for joining me. Take a good look at this video and stay tuned to the end. So please introduce yourselves.
My name's Marty Elk, and I used to own the place here, and I sold it to Jason.
Yep, Jason Schlage. I'm the new owner here.
And we're Hamilton Packing Company, right? So the name of this place. And
Hamilton, Montana.
We're in Hamilton, Montana. Beautiful valley between the Bitterroots and the Sapphires,
Sapphires,
right?
yep.
Basically, Sapphire Mountains. There's a lot of animals out grazing right now. There's a ton of grass. They're up to their cow pits and grass, and I call them cow pits.
Yep.
You know? And they're all looking happy. And we come to this local butcher shop here, packing company, and see all this beautiful meat available that's local. And I just had some questions for these gentlemen.
Okay, go ahead.
So there's a lot of grass out here. We see them grazing. How long do the animals graze in the season? How long's the season here?
The guy that just brought a few in, Ray Dunbar, he bought them at 400 pounds and bought them in the spring, and we just butchered them last week, and they weighed about 1,000. So there's pretty good gain to them.
Now, did those animals, they were all grazing the whole time? Did they finish on anything?
They heat grained a little bit, but mostly grass fat.
What is heat grain? Can you explain that?
He said there was some, I'm not sure what it was, but he called it a high-end grain or something. It's one of the feed mills that here in Hamilton they make it.
Okay, so what is it typically? A mix of wheat,
A mix of corn and wheats, different stuff.
Something that's hot, something that fattens them up
And
a little
put
bit, high sugar
yep,
content.
give them a little more nutrition, fatten up.
Okay, so they might do that for how many days?
Oh, 3 months maybe, just depends on how fast they want to push them. Grained usually is about 90 days. 90 to 120 days when they push them just real heavy feed. But a lot of guys will just feed a little bit of grain to them as they're growing too.
Okay, so they might be out to pasture but come in for some grain.
Yep, a little supplement of something to keep them a little bit healthier.
Okay. Now I see a lot of giant hay rolls. What do you call those rolls of hay?
Hay, round bales?
Round bales.
Round bales, yeah.
Well, I know I've heard terms like, and maybe from Reading, haylage, baleage, silage. What are
Silage
these
is a different
things?
process. That's a whole different process than hay.
Okay.
It's more of a pit type or a wet type feed.
A wet type.
Yeah.
Like ferments?
Kind of ferments, so you got to be a little careful feeding it. But that's usually used on dairies. The dairy farmers will usually do that.
Okay, so these are dry bales.
Yep, feed that during winter months, when they need it. They'll start feeding once we get snow and the grass is down, then they'll start feeding hay.
Okay.
But once you start feeding hay, you have to keep feeding hay because the cows want it all the time.
Okay. They won't go looking for
They won't look at,
foraging.
yep.
They're done looking.
Yep. So if you get early snow and you have to start feeding, your hay goes pretty quick.
Okay.
And just have to go feed till spring or till you get some green grass.
So that brings up a really important question. Beef cattle, what is their length, their lifespan? They're born, they're out there right now nursing their mamas, right?
Right. The beef that are going to be slaughtered would be usually before 30 months of age, they'll be slaughtered.
Before 30 months.
Yeah.
So a little after 2 years.
Probably, yeah, year and a half, 2 years. And then you have your cows that can go up to 10, 12 years old or whatever, as long as they're calving good. Then you have your bulls at 5 to 6 years, then they usually get butchered.
Okay. And so you said a difference between dairy and beef cattle, and they're going to be fed differently.
Fed differently, fatten up differently. A beef cow is going to fatten up quite faster than a Holstein will. They're bonier. They're just not bred for. They're bred for milk, not
it's the
for
breeding.
It's the breeding. Yeah, it's more of the breeding.
Okay. And will dairy cows get that hotter grain mix at any point? Is it just dependent upon weather and health and?
On the, which one's that?
Will they get like a corn grain?
On the milk cows?
Mix? Yeah.
Yeah, they'll get fed real heavy because they get milk pretty heavy.
Okay. So they get a combination of
grazing and then feed while they're getting milk. They'll get grains while they're getting milked. Some of the dairies here will milk 3 times a day.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, but dairy farming's a tough business.
What makes it tougher?
You can't control, and even beef itself, you can't control the milk prices. They're controlled by somebody else. So you might be getting paid less for your milk, but hay prices are high. So dairies are hard business to run.
And there isn't like a cooperative around here that keeps the milk prices, has a pool?
They somewhat, but it's still pretty hard for the dairies. So most dairies that go out of business or never start back up.
Okay, so it's a mostly beef cattle when it comes to
Here,
cattle
yeah.
ranching.
Years ago, there was a lot of dairies around here and creameries, but that just faded because there was the cost. They just couldn't make money.
Yeah, I saw their antique malls now, the creamery.
Yeah, and so I mean that vanished. There's one guy that does have a creamery here, Lifeline Farms, and he's strictly organic, and that's one reason he can kind of control his own prices a little bit because of the organic.
Right.
But he's a little bit on the smaller scale too.
So the market has set a higher price, and that makes it worthwhile for him to run it that way.
Yep.
So what have you seen as this grass-fed beef market has grown nationwide, where people are wanting what they think is fully grass-fed beef? How do you see that changing your environment here?
It's a different flavor. Grass-fed is different flavored than a grain-fed. I personally like the grain-fed, a sweeter, a little bit more fat to it. They marble up a little better. Where grass fat's going to have a different flavor. Not quite. Most people won't. Well, how would I say that?
It's almost gamey, a little more gamey flavor.
Like an elk, it doesn't, and it's not like if you go buy a big fancy steak in a restaurant or a supermarket, it's not going to be that same flavor. Unless you know that the supermarket's selling grass fat.
But do you get people coming in here now that are saying
definitely.
That's what they really are looking for?
Yeah. In fact, a lot of ranchers raise beef and then sell them. They might raise 4 or 5. They'll keep one and sell the other ones. And so a lot of them just will go to the grass fat instead of graining them.
So a place like yours here is a really good outlet for somebody who's saving a few animals to sell strictly, and you'll label it differently and sell it differently?
Yeah, if it was grass-fed, grass-finished, definitely. I mean, I think the most important part is people want to know where their product is coming from, and if they want to know, where it's from and what it was fed, we can let them know. Because a lot of the people are just down the road, so we can ask them, did you grass feed it, grass finish it, did you grain it? And if they want to know, we can get them the information. So, keeping it local is important here, and we do our best to do as much as we can to keep as much of our product local.
And so what is the difference between what you sell out of here and what people get at any of the local supermarkets?
I think that is, you know,
Montana beef.
yeah,
Where they know it's Montana beef.
that's just it. It's local. I mean, we have to buy some stuff boxed in like tri-tips, but as much as possible, we're buying it here in the valley and selling it.
Okay, yeah, and you used this term boxed beef earlier. So can you explain that?
Yeah, it's just the primals that, you know, only 2 tri-tips come off of beef, but if 100 people want tri-tips, you can't run through a beef before you need more tri-tips. So you got to buy a box of tri-tips.
From all over the nation, basically.
Yeah, or it could be from a feedlot from
Washington beef.
So.
Or something
So
like
Washington's a big state for feedlot beef that
that. And
you
Colorado
might get here.
is.
And Colorado.
Nebraska is, you know, more towards the east.
And are these animals that also graze, but then spend
Got grained out.
3 to 6 months
Yep.
graining out in a feedlot?
And a lot of these beef that are raised in Montana, they'll sell them as steers, maybe 700-800 pounds. They'll go to a feedlot in, say, Nebraska or Washington, and then they'll get butchered and then sent all over the country.
Okay, so somebody might be grazing their animals here up to a certain age,
Mm-hmm.
and then a feedlot company
Yep.
will buy them.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
Yep.
Yep, just finish them off.
Finish them out. Okay. I'm driving around. I don't see any of those signs that say this is corn type,
Like-
XYZ 270
Yeah.
licensed. I don't see any of those signs. So there are people growing. I also don't see that. There's weed kill around the perimeter of the ranches. Which would tell me that they were using a lot of Roundup over the whole crop. So are a lot of the corn crops that are here just normal corn? Are they genetically modified?
I would suggest most of them here are pretty much, most of the ranches here are fairly small because it's small, narrow valley. So there's not a lot of spraying. Pretty, what would you call it? I would say organic, just a lot of natural. And a lot of them will raise their grain and then go ahead and maybe send it to one of the feed mills here, and they'll grind it, add some other stuff to it, some corn or whatever, and that's what they'll finish feeding their cattle out with.
Okay. So that's an important point because you have to have healthy animals.
Right.
You've got winter here, you've got lower temperatures, you have cows that are calving, you have dairy cows. They might need that.
They do need it at certain times. Different breeds make a difference too.
Okay.
Like Angus cattle are bred for marbling and for that fat, just natural. And then Salier or maybe a Charolais, they're a leaner type beef, so they're going to take longer to feed out than say an Angus, Red Angus, Black Angus, or say Hereford. They're going to fatten up faster, or even on grass they're going to fatten up.
Okay, so an Angus is going to be like, one of us who just eats a little bit of cake and we start to get a belly. Like they marble out real fast.
Over the years, they've basically been bred to just pack a little bit more marbling.
And can that happen on grass alone?
Oh yeah, I've seen some really nice beef come on just grass finished, and they look like they've been grained.
Okay.
But that was because of the breed.
So an Angus breed, even on grass, can get nice marbling. So that's a good breed of animal for people who want grass finished but want some of that nice marbling, fat dripping on the grove.
Yeah, and see, there's a few people raise Texas Longhorns here, which are a little odd in this because they're thin-hided in this country, but they just don't fatten up like Angus or Herefords.
Okay. And what about other animals here, like lambs, mutton? We've got some great ribs in the freezer that we tried the other day, so that's pork. I saw some sheep out, but I haven't seen any pigs. Where's that coming from?
We'll get some people where we buy some pigs from, but pigs are hard to make money on. They're fairly cheap. They're kind of like chickens, very cheap meat. And so a lot of farmers it's too expensive to feed them. So they just either buy them from somebody else that feeds a whole bunch of Hutterite colonies north of here. They raise thousands of them.
Oh, really?
But they raise their own feed and stuff, and it's kind of a community type thing. Here, over the last 20 years, there's probably hardly any hog farmers left in the valley.
Wow.
that raise just strictly hogs.
Okay. And that's a different raising too, as far as the enclosure.
In 6 months, a hog's ready to eat, you know, so their lifespan's fairly short.
Okay. Okay. So 6 months for the hog. And what about sheep out here?
Sheep, yeah, we butcher. We don't have a big call for sheep here. There's not a lot of sheep people that want to eat sheep for some reason. I mean, it's catching on a little bit better, but there's quite a few people that raise them here. But what they do is ship them. There's a big market in Billings, Montana, where once a month or something, they send all the sheep there. They have a big auction, then they're sent probably out of state somewhere.
I saw some sheep grazing on, you know, it's almost like the cattle graze down the grasses and the sheep are finishing it off. They cut it real low.
Oh, they do.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
is there a cycle for ranchers where they might run cattle through and then the sheep come through and then they let it lay, or?
I'm not sure on that.
Yeah.
These are cattle farmers, sheep farmers are sheep farmers. One thing about sheep and goats, they pretty much eat everything. Weeds, whatever it takes. They're not finicky eaters, I guess.
Now, are there laws? Does the EPA get involved here and say you can only have so many head of cattle out on a land at a certain time as far as water runoff? And,
No,
no?
no, I mean, that's responsibility basically of the farmer.
Okay, good.
But there's neighbors that, you know, if something's getting neglected, they can get turned in, you know. And
So if they get too much of an accumulation of animal waste or that
Yeah.
kind of stuff.
It's pretty much what the land will support is what they can run on,
right,
right?
yeah, and most farmers take care of their places.
So what's the cycle? I see, you know, animals, so cattle out grazing, and then I see some land where there's nothing grazing, and then I see them cut it, and then they'll bale that. They're just having to rotate animals through different pastures.
Yep, and then this fall where they've cut the hay, they'll let the grass get up so high and then turn the cattle on that right before they have to start feeding. And that's where we get that first snow and they have to start feeding, the cattle won't go and clean that whole field up.
Okay. So that's it. Once the first snow hits, you start
Pretty
giving
much,
hay.
I mean,
They're coming
Time
in
to
for the
feed.
food. Okay.
So she was asking about the genetically modified grains and stuff like that.
Corn. I don't know if
Yeah.
you eat soy.
I'm not sure, but would you be willing to say that like pretty much most of the produce around here is not genetically
No,
modified? Yeah,
It's too
just
small
natural.
scaled, you know.
Yeah, I was pretty sure that there's no genetically modified stuff going on in the valley as far as
And is it a
produce
question
and
of
stuff.
economics? Like it just doesn't warrant the
Economics,
contract? Because-
Probably, and we wouldn't want it. I would think, you know.
Well, they can get a better price for it, and when you're talking a smaller place, they don't have to ship it all over, so they don't need a big quantity of it. So they don't have to spray all the time. They can just sell their product locally for a little bit better price and come out a little bit better.
So what was your mission in starting this facility?
Suicide was first, Nick. No, I grew up here and then went to work in Wyoming, and so I wanted to come back here, and this was a business I thought would be good for me, and I ended up buying it, and it taught me a lot. I didn't know how to cut meat, but I learned real quick, and just I've been around cattle all my life, so it was just interesting.
And you want, I mean, you're wanting to provide a local product.
Oh.
Where's that in your heart?
Well, I think everybody deserves, I mean, every town deserves a place like this so they can bring their animals and get their own animal back. I mean, that's big for the community, I think.
That's awesome. And what about you? You started in Reading?
Yep. 19 years there, and just made the move up here. It's only like my 8th day as owner or something.
Yeah.
But you know, I wanted to move back to a place that was a little bit like I grew up. You know, California was getting a little too big for me, and I wanted to move here to raise my kids. And I know the place will support it, and I kind of like what Marty and Kim have created here. I just want to keep it going and see where I can take it from here.
Great.
Yeah. And then elk, we butcher a lot of game.
Okay, so yeah, what about game? So people can bring their own animal in here,
Yeah.
process it.
Elk and deer, antelope, anywhere from mountain lions to bears too, we've got. Yeah. So a lot of families eat elk and deer. And that's about as natural as you can get, really.
I don't see any golf courses. right here, so it makes me happy
There are.
that they might be grazing on some good stuff instead of.
They're here. That's one thing about the deer and elk. They pretty much eat wherever they want. So if they want to eat on this nice little alfalfa field, they can, or they can go over this guy's cornfield and eat. So it's pretty interesting. A lot of hunters here.
Yeah, another reason I moved here.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
You know?
Exactly.
Yeah, it's amazing. And then there's a lot of families. That's what they count on for their food, their meat for the year.
So just to clarify, some people are bringing in their animal here for you to process, and then you package it and they take it back, whether
Yep.
it's a cow or sheep or pig or deer or elk or whatever.
Yep.
And some people are selling you an animal that you might hold for a few days, then process and put out to sell.
Absolutely.
Yep. Yeah, and usually on a fat beef or something, we'll hang them 10 to 14 days, sometimes 21, before we cut them and package them. Yeah.
Well, I think we're about to buy some ribeye right now. Well, tell us
Did
about the
you want-
ribeye that we want to buy today.
Oh shoot, the
I came in
ribeye.
and I was asking you, okay, what about this ribeye over here? Where'd that come from?
I think we just broke that out of a beef that we
Beef,
got
yeah.
from, what was that, Trey?
Trey.
I don't know his
Trey
last name,
Anthony,
but
yeah.
that one came from in the valley here. So,
So that's an animal he sold to you.
Yep.
We let
He
it hang
raised
and
it.
age and broke the first part of it last week, and the next part we're breaking down this week, and that's what's in the case right now.
All right, well, we'll take some.
And then,
All right.
I don't know if you want to look at any of the beef hanging or hogs hanging.
Want to walk through? Yeah.
That'd be kind of cool.
They want to look at some beef hanging.
Feeling like Rocky right now.
Yeah, pow.
There's a few hanging there, and there's another cooler over here.
You can see some of the beef are a little bit fatter than the other ones.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you can see a little more yellowy fat as
And
compared
sometimes
to the
color,
whiter.
age, sometimes the old cows get yellow.
So yellow means what?
Usually an older cow's gonna have some yellow fat to it, but if they corn feed a younger one, it's yellow, it's usually because of the feed.
So the
Heavy on the corn,
yeah.
Yep.
Create a different kind of fat, it sounds like.
Yep. And then you'll get some.
If nobody told you how they raised the animal, and all you knew was its age, could you tell if it was more grass finished or grain finished?
To a point, you probably could. That's where it's a little deceiving if you get on a really good breed that comes in and it's like, wow, this guy grained it, and then you find out he didn't. That was just because of the breed, but most of these have been finished with grain here, I would say. These here were those ones I was talking about earlier. They're not very fatty. Did feed them some kind of a grain, but mostly these are grass fat with a little bit of grain substitute for them. And you can just see here, they're a little bit leaner. They don't have this big chunk of fat up here.
When the animals come into you and you look at them when they're still alive, by and large, are they all really healthy? Like, do you
Yeah.
ever have animals that come in that look like
Oh,
got
they do,
beef
but
and-
we're under inspection. So we have an inspector here. So if something does look funny with the beef, they'll inspect it, have a veterinarian come look at it, and it might get, if there's something really bad, not wholesome to eat, it'll get condemned. And so once in a while we get some of them, but not very often.
I'm just, there's a belief out there that if animals spend a lot of time in a stockyard, the crowded conditions, therefore the kind of medications they have to be on, being mostly on grain as opposed to grasses, not moving around, that all of this might lead to a less healthy animal.
I don't know, you talk about the like wagoos, they pin them up. The way I understand it, they put them in small pens so they don't move, they pack the fat on them. I think most feedlots around here are big enough where they do get to move around. I think it's better than just a little pen with 50 beef in it.
Yeah. So being smaller ranches, smaller operations, you're going to see more healthy animals.
I think so, rather than the big ones, yeah.
The shivers apparently.
I know,
Yeah.
we go out this way. I'm getting cold too. It was cold this morning.
Two more beef hanging in there.
This is a bull, and that's a bull.
She said that's a bull?
That'll be probably all hamburger there.
Because they're older and tougher? Is that why?
Older and tougher. We open up the shoulders like that so they'll cool out good.
Now, is he already, I mean, he doesn't have as much fat.
No fat, hardly at all. But see, this bull
Bulls don't generally.
he was out in the field breeding cows, so he's going to be leaner.
And he's got a different hormonal.
Yeah, and where this bull here, he's quite a bit fatter.
Oh, really? Oh, yeah. Huh.
But the reason behind that, probably didn't have very many cows to breed. So I mean, he was maybe a lazy bull.
He was a lazy bull.
Yeah, but you could definitely tell he's got a lot more
that's
fat.
interesting. And they are so
I'm
much
freezing.
bigger. Yeah, it's cool.
But then there's the hogs. Hogs all look about the same.
Yeah.
Oh, got some tongue, heart.
All the awful.
We get a lot of organ meats for our, he grinds them up for our cats. We
Yeah.
feed them a raw
Oh, yeah,
diet,
yeah.
raw
That's
diet.
becoming more and more popular.
Oh.
The raw pet food diet. I mean,
Because they're wanting to watch out they don't want to feed their animals all this stuff that's been ground up and
That dry food and the
Yeah.
and cat food, yeah, it's crazy.
yeah.
Yeah, our cats
Let's go
eat
this
better than
way.
we do.
I'm freezing. Oh, this feels a little better.
Instantly warmer.
Oh, you have a real clean operation here.
Yeah, this is the kill floor. So they'll come in and butcher them, kill them there, and then they get skinned and whatever and washed and put in there. And
Yep.
So you mentioned your, because I said my daughter says, oh, lambs are so cute, but they taste so good, and you said the same about.
Yeah, my daughter
Yeah.
and my wife, said that beef, they love, how cute they are. It's just unfortunate that God made them taste so good.
But raising kids to know where their food comes from.
Yeah.
Oh,
See a lot of
yeah.
that here.
No, my kids are all about it. My son, he says he's wanted to be a meat cutter or a meat man since he's been 3 years old, and he still does. He's 10 now, but he wants to come in and see the kill and be a part of it. So that's another thing I'm looking forward to,
And you're a hunter.
Oh, yeah.
You're a
Yeah.
hunter?
yep,
Yeah.
yep.
We're all hunters.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess that's
Humans
part
are
of being
hunters.
in Montana, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I grew up with my dad hunting and dressing out the deer in the garage. I
Uh-huh.
have that pretty ingrained in my head.
Yeah, just that's what we like around here is hunting and fishing and just being in the outdoors,
What's funny too is a slaughterhouse owner, I'd raise some cattle out front, a couple steers. I would sell them. I couldn't butcher them for some reason. Yeah,
They
no,
became pets.
I'll let somebody else butcher them. I'll sell them to somebody. They can take them someplace else. I couldn't kill them and
That's
eat them.
interesting. Do you
Yeah.
think that if you had a whole herd, it would be different?
I think it would. You wouldn't get as attached to them.
Yeah.
But when you see them every day and they're like your pets and stuff like that, yeah, and some of the little goats people bring in, it's like, oh man, do we really have to do that?
But that's
It's life.
that's
I mean,
great.
that's part of
That's
it.
the human side of you.
Yeah.
It's just saying,
Yeah,
I got some emotion around this. It's not just a business.
right, yep.
But we do have to eat. So
And somebody's got to do it, and people, it's a needed benefit to the communities.
and if you can do it well and as kindly as possible.
Yeah,
as
oh,
safely
yeah,
as
humane,
possible, then,
yep.
You might as well be the one doing it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that's what a lot of guys will do. If they have an older cow, they'll want to sell it to, say, us rather than take it to the livestock yard because they know they can dump it here. It'll get handled right. It won't be shipped on a truck someplace, and we'll take care of it.
Where do your hides go?
Right now, we just throw them away because there's no market for them.
So there's nobody
Yeah.
that's scooping up hides across the valley and taking
No.
them off somewhere for processing. There's a big market.
Hopefully that'll come
hide
back.
collagen right now. It's a escalating market.
Well, I think sometimes the big guy just wants to squeeze the little guys out.
Yeah.
With regulations, paperwork, and they just don't want these little guys around. We're kind of like a thorn in their side, I guess.
That's unfortunate.
It is.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is, really.
Well, I hope you can survive here well. Keep this going.
Oh, and this, the valley, I mean, there's enough people in the valley to keep it going.
Yeah, there's plenty of work.
Wow. Well, thank you both so much.
Oh, you bet.
You're more than
Appreciate
welcome.
it. Thanks a lot.
Thanks.
Thank
Good
you.
luck, and we'll reach out to you.